If you're sitting your Year 12 ATAR exams this year, I need you to stop studying right now. Why? Because
you could be doing it all wrong.
the harsh reality is many students don't know how to properly study, and it's by no fault of their own. Like, when was the last time you remember your school walking you through how to actually study? I think for many students, the assumption is,
if I study hard, I should get good grades.
but unfortunately, that is not how it works. We have to actually ask ourselves, what does it take to do good study? What should study actually look like? And how do we stay consistent with it? Luckily, this video aims to answer all these questions and ultimately help you lock in the right way this year so that you can avoid all the academic frustration during Year 12 and actually enjoy it for once. Now, the most common study approach I see involves highlighting textbooks, rereading notes, or copying things out again, hoping it'll stick. If this is you, you're probably wasting a lot of time. The first step to actually making ATAR study work for you is to understand how your brain actually learns. And it starts with the term retrieval. Let's say you've got an English essay coming up. You reread your quotes 5 times, you highlight the themes, and you copy them into a nice summary doc. Now, most people would think that that's enough and that they should be good to go for the exam. But when the exam actually hits, suddenly they can't remember which quotes go with which theme, or even worse, you remember the quote but have no idea how to actually analyze it for the question. The reason this happens is because students don't understand that recognition of a concept or new information isn't the same as retrieving or recalling that new information. And so when you reread something, your brain goes, oh yeah, I've seen this before. I know this. But knowing you've seen it isn't the same as being able to pull it out of your brain when you actually need it, especially when you have time constraints. And so put simply, actual learning happens when your brain has to struggle to retrieve information on its own. This is illustrated quite clearly in the learning pyramid, where it showcases how reading offers only 10% retention of new information, whilst practicing an actual concept, which provides 75% retention of new information, and even better, teaching that new concept to someone else provides 90% retention of that new information. And so essentially, your brain needs resistance. It needs to be challenged. And so that's what we'll explore how to do next. Now, a great way to challenge your brain when trying to achieve effective study is to try and flip the process of learning, which usually looks like you learn something, you then study it, and eventually test yourself and repeat the process. And for a majority of students, that works. But students who end up crushing their ATARs and, importantly, make their study routines more efficient, that means less time but better results, actually test themselves first. And so instead of learning first, they actually test themselves on material they haven't fully learned yet, then actively learn to retrieve the content they struggle with, and ultimately learn more effectively and efficiently. So here's how you can apply this method in Year 12. So the first step is to grab a past paper and attempt a practice question for the topic you're trying to learn. Step 2 is then to attempt the question without looking at any notes you might have on that specific topic. And step 3 is to go back and study the parts you got wrong, essentially trying to fill the gaps. Here are a few more examples to make this concept a little bit more concrete. So for English, for example, you tried writing a practice paragraph before reviewing your quotes and analysis again. Or for maths, you attempt a past paper question first before looking at the worked solution. Or even for chemistry, you quiz yourself first on a specific unit before rereading the textbook. Now, I know this study method is not for everyone, and so if that is you, consider watching this video right over here, where I break down a conventional study technique that's still way more effective than passive learning. Now, the next thing we have to wrap our heads around is the annoying concept that is the forgetting curve. The idea that our brains rapidly lose memory of new information over time if we don't actively review it. So you can study something perfectly today, understand it completely, feel 100% confident, and then forget 50% of it within 24 hours. The human brain treats information like a spam filter. And if you only see a piece of information once, your brain assumes that it's not important and completely deletes it. But if you review that same information multiple times, spaced out over days and weeks, your brain goes, okay, this keeps coming up. Must be important. Let's keep it. This is called spaced repetition, and it's the single most effective way to retain information long term. Here's how you can actually apply it in Year 12. On day 1, your focus should be to learn the material in class or from your textbook and try to understand it rather than memorize it. On day 3, you can do a quick 10-minute review of what you learned on day 1. You can test yourself on the key concepts without your notes. Now, whatever you can't recall is what you would need to focus on resolving, and so you would spend the next 3 days overcoming those content gaps. On day 7, you would grab a blank page and try to write out everything you remember about that topic. Your brain in this situation will be forced to retrieve the information, not just recognize it. And then day 14 and beyond is all about testing yourself continually every week or so. And so once you understand and implement the power of spaced repetition into your study routine, by the time those important assessments roll around for Year 12, that information should be locked in your head. So now that you know how to actually study for your ATAR exams, how can you ensure you actually go through with these learning techniques and stay consistent till you wrap up year 12? Build what I like to call a study menu. Instead of thinking I need to study for 2 hours a day and do all these techniques perfectly, you're going to have 3 pre-built study sessions based on how much time you actually have per day. And so here's what this study menu can look like. Let's say you only have 30 minutes. You can pick one topic from one subject, and you would set a timer for 15 minutes and test yourself on a blank page with no notes. You would use the other 15 minutes to cross-check your answers with your notes and identify the content gaps that you can actively study for in the future. Now, let's say you can only dedicate 1 hour of study for any given day. You can use the first 15 minutes of that hour to review something you studied 2 to 3 days ago and self-test yourself to identify content gaps for active study in the future. You can then dedicate the next 30 minutes towards learning something new using the test yourself method or any study method you like from this video we talked about earlier. And so the great thing about this 1 hour session is it does 3 things at once. It reinforces old material, it learns new material the right way, and locks it in for you by teaching it out loud, all in 1 hour. I think the great thing about having a study menu is that you don't need to rely on motivation or willpower to stay consistent with your study techniques. You kind of just pick the study menu option that best suits your day. And I think importantly, this study menu approach highlights the power of systemizing your study life. You build a system so easy to follow that consistency becomes automatic. Now, my most recent video walks through how to build a study system from the ground up. And so if that is something you're interested in and want to implement for yourselves, I'll link that video right over here for you to go and check out. By no means is year 12 easy, regardless of what subjects you do. But if you take some time to learn how to properly study, and I hope this video kind of walked through what you should be doing in your final year of school, you'll save a lot of hours of wasted time and, importantly, any tragic meltdowns. Now, if this video helped you, make sure to give the video a like and comment below what is your favorite study approach. And consider subscribing to the KISS YouTube channel. It's completely free and you get more access to specific breakdowns on study systems, time management, and essentially building better study habits. Thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next one.